And welcome once again to Living in the Dementia World. I'm glad to be back here with you. And today we want to speak basically on aging as well as being abused. Today we basically want to look at what's going on among the dementia elderly. And according to the World Health Organization, 1 out of 6 people over the age of 60 years are consistently being abused. And that number somewhat may be exaggerated, but we believe that as people age more in this 21st century, there's a whole lot more of abuse going on than even being reported. So basically, we want to look at the dementia patient. And these are usually abused because of their symptoms. They become a victim not only physically, mentally, of their own symptoms, but it somewhat attracts external forces, or others rather, to victimize you. And this is awful because as your frontal temporal lobe is being deteriorated as a dementia person, the ability to analyze and synthesize, the ability to recollect, excuse me, or remember what you had experienced a few minutes ago or hours ago or a day ago usually doesn't happen because, excuse me please, it don't usually happen because what happens is that part of the brain that normally it represents the short-term memory is failing you, so to speak. And I'm going to try to keep this more on layman terms that you can understand vividly what's really going on. And those symptoms that you suffer now become your victim externally and internally within. And this presents to that person a problematic future as they consistently battle the symptoms of dementia. What happens here is that often the caretakers, whether they are in your home or in the hospitals or nursing facilities, there is a lot going on. And the world is problematic. We can want things happen in the perfect world perfectly. We can have all the resident rights and all those things that are really good that we think should be adhered to as a corporation, nursing corporation, whatever the case may be, or even among your household or your family. But we're not in a perfect world. We don't have perfect humans. The world is problematic. People are problematic. The doctors are problematic. The nurses are problematic. The caretakers are problematic. Everyone in the world today has problems. And these problems has a tendency of invading someone else's life one way or the other, whether it is done intentionally or unintentionally. It has a trickle-down effect. And it's hard for the dementia person because unless you are a sincere, genuine person living in their world, you cannot, in fairness, meet them at the same level. It's virtually impossible. You may be working at home with 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 dementia patients, and there are very few CNAs to do the active daily livings or ADLs, few nurses to the number, and all of that we have problems. Because bear in mind, at the end of the day, the nursing homes are in a position to make profits. It's about profits at the end of the day, not necessarily so much about how we treat and try to adhere to the governing principles and so forth. But that's one aspect, and that's the reality part to all of this. So let's go down now to the physical emotions and assaults and verbal intimidation that is a self-torture. Really, think about it. One-on-one person, be it in the home or the nursing facility, dealing with a patient, and they are already burnt out. They are suffering mental issues just as well as the person they're dealing with. They leave home with a ton of problems. They're worried how they're going to get their rent paid, their bills paid. All manner of things are resting on their mind, while at the same very time they are trying to take care of a dementia person, a person that deserves all your attention, wanting to be loving and kind, need you to identify with them. But that part of you is not committed because you got 3 or 4 more patients there to deal with, right? So you shout at the person ran around, and may spite them, you may pinch them, you may do something that is abusive to that person. You may verbally abuse them, say all kind of adjectives to the person. The things that goes on behind closed doors, and we want to keep this real and practical. We can't hide it because I find today people prefers to live at a stage of denial. They don't want to accept facts. But we got to speak facts because those who are living in dementia, they can't speak for themselves. Someone has to justifiably speak for them and speak the truth, despite of whatever their background may be. So you got the psychological issues going on there. Physical and the psychological, they're all going to blend together because what affects your body will certainly affect your mind. The reality, they are feeling it, but they can't express themselves. They don't know to lay a complaint. They can't tell their visitor who is a family member or a friend, well, this is what my CNA do to me, or this is what happened to me when it was showering, or this is what happened to me when it was feeding. They just didn't feed me. They just didn't do this. They didn't give me the attention they deserve. Hey, come on. She or he is they're just losing their mind. They get decent treatment every day. They're well taken care of. Now, this is the administration, or this is the saying, oh, they're well taken care of. You don't have no problem. And a sweet smiling face. And it's sad you got to speak about these things because it's a way of life. And every nursing facility has it. They're not going to tell you that. They need a business. It's about business, right? So that's one of the physical things that you can start thinking about seriously when your loved one is admitted, how you have to be observative. You have to pay attention to their body and yes, they are deteriorating mentally, but look at their physical reaction for things like these here. We've got to look at the physical brutality of the person. Should that present itself? And what are the things you're looking for? You're looking for skin bruises, skin burns, joints dislocation, and even broken bones. If there's not a report of falls or accidents, then it's clear. Your loved one, the resident or the patient, is getting physically abused. It has to be reported to the relevant authorities. And these happen because then every patient who goes into the nursing home or the hospital or wherever they're admitted to, that it's going to be nice and got a little bit of cognitive, because often the ones who are not so cognitive always have a way of lashing out to the caretakers. And the reality is that caretakers, they're humans. They're human too. and they're going to do what human nature allows them to do. And that sometimes is not a good thing. That sometimes is a bad thing in the presence of the victim in this case. They can't do it better. Dementia in everyone is differently. There may be similarities, and there is similarities, but your behavioral pattern since you were grown as a child, it doesn't change when you have dementia, even though your brain is deteriorating. If you were someone who were physically active, the reality is that you'll be physically combative with your caretakers, your CNAs. So we have to be very patient in analyzing the behavior pattern of your patient or resident. If they seem upset at one point, give them a little bit of time, get back to them, allow them to catch themselves, because their cognitive ability don't work like yours. It don't work like ours. So they can be here 1 minute and there the next second. So we must play that critical role in being analytic at all times when dealing with our residents. So we look at the physical brutality, what to expect, what to look for when you have a dementia loved one or family member admitted to the hospital. You know, it's hard, but we got to do our due diligence still. And we still have to show them that we love them. And we have to be their mouthpiece. We have to be living in their world. So you have to speak for them. They no longer can speak for themselves. They no longer can analyze and synthesize. And by the way, those who got the ability or a little cognitive ability to speak for themselves, you have to empower those people to do what is right. Not only for themselves, but others who are around them. That's a good way. So let's just take next look at one of the other abuses that goes on when it's in the home or the nursing home. And I won't say this much for the nursing homes because the environment does not present that atmosphere for sexual molestation and indulgence and so forth with residents or patients. Sexual abuse is, believe it or not, it's one of the most complicated of them all. You know, from time a person become disconnected from the real world, and that goes for their lifetime long partner, maybe a husband, maybe a wife, and that person could no longer speak for themselves or say no or yes to nothing. The husband know that, the family members know that, and believe it or not, most of the sexual abuse are done within the homes. It's there where all the problems evolves, and that is compounding more problems upon a person who already have serious issues, mental issues, deterioration of the mind. Their cognitive ability is destroyed. But here comes a husband or a family member and sexually molesting the other partner or family member. And it's hard to prove this unless there's a DNA test. And who's going to argue for a DNA test? A husband to a wife, if he has sex forcibly, or raped the wife, or the wife raped the husband, the brain is not there. They can't call for a DNA test. They can't report it to the police. So who's going to say it? Really? It's not reality. So that is another issue that goes on. But what are some of the symptoms that nursing homes or skilled facilities or any other form of healthcare facility has to look for are some of these symptoms. Sexual transmitted disease is a number one symptom. Genital infections, problems to the pelvic area, bruises, whatever the case may be. Genital bruises or bleeding. Self-withdrawal from regular activities. Being scared and coming face to face with the abuser or predator. When signs of such are present, this should report to relevant authorities. This is a clear indication that the person is sexually molested, abused, carnal knowledge is exhibited on this person in a physical way. That should be reported to the law. These people need to have thorough representation. They need to be exposed to the same rights that we, as the able-bodied and able-minded, are exposed to. They have the right to get that form of representation. Be a mouthpiece for these victims of dementia. The next area we want to look at is financial abuse, and this, it don't get no worse than this. We just spoke about the psychological, we just spoke about the sexual, but think about it. You may be financially or fiscally able to take care of yourself. You got wealth, you got property, whatever the case may be. But your spouse or family member have access, become your proxy, have access to your finances. They don't make fiscal decisions on your behalf, and often those fiscal decisions more benefit the family member, the friend, the spouse, than it benefit the patient or resident. And this is bad. And how do they really get robbed? In many ways. Dementia allows the subject to be financially abused. The increasing of lack to understanding or comprehend the value of financial resources, families or close friends can alter or change your financial entitlements. We have credit card misuse, robbing by checks, subject to be scammed easily, tele scams, poor quality of care for full pay. It's stolen money. That's awful. You know, we want to look at it realistically because people don't necessarily see things the way they ought to see it. And I always hear this, that today is mine, tomorrow is yours. And the same thing you do to a person today may very well measure back to you tomorrow. But mankind don't normally think it that way. They believe that, well, I'm strong enough and good today, so these things are going to happen to me. My mind is intact, I'm pretty good. But we don't get time to think of the evolution of how dementia creeps upon people. They don't go to sleep one night and wake up the next morning and recognize you have dementia. This thing goes through a process. But because your cognitive ability is still connected, you don't even recognize when that you're forgetting things more often than you normally do. And this is a sign that, hey, dementia is creeping in on you. That is an issue. One of the other things we want to look at critically here is neglect. And, excuse me, I don't want to look at neglect from the standpoint that you intentionally do it. Neglect can be done intentionally or unintentionally. And it comes right back down to what I've mentioned before earlier, is that humanity, mankind today, have so much problems of their own. It doesn't matter how beautiful you smile or appear, or how connected you seem. is always an underlying pattern of false pretense. And that false pretense embodied lies and denials. And often, the victim of dementia always bear up your causes, your problems, not theirs. You, as I say, you live home with issues, you go to work, you can't function correctly, you don't think correctly, you don't act correctly, and therefore, the patient can't get 100% of you. They can't get your full commitment. The things you do are not to standard, they are substandard, which means that the patients are getting substandard treatment, but you're getting a full pay, right? Neglect is a serious thing, because when a person is admitted finally to any nursing skill facility or any homes, whatever the case may be, they're admitted there because they no longer can do the things they normally do for themselves. In other words, for them to do it for themselves, they're going to neglect their own selves unintentionally because they don't know any better. So they come to your place now to get the attention that they need so they won't be neglected. But you come and meet some seasoned caretakers who got years of knowledge in the field, but they also have years and knowledge of problems in their life, and you're not getting the full commitment you need to get from them because they have their issues too, and you're still getting neglect either way. And this is wrong, sorry. Everyone deserves to get the best treatment for their money. Everyone deserves to be cared for and treated with respect. It's one of the residents' rights not to be neglected and not to be disrespected. Free from neglect. So let us make sure that we do our due diligence, because it's essential that we do so. In this final chapter of what I'm speaking here on, the ability of empowerment, and this is important, because everyone that goes through the dementia process, they are not necessarily that decomplete. They are not fully decompleted of their cognitive ambitions, and they still can make decisions on their own. When that happens, it is essential that we play a pivotal role in encouraging them to maintain that level of cognitiveness by enabling them to make good decisions, advising them of their resident rights, and doing what is right. Now, bear in mind, government ain't gonna do everything for you. Don't wait for legislation to do everything for you, because it may never get done, all right? Dementia patients should have the ability to acquire legal representation as of anyone with cognitive ability or rights. So even though they are in a dementia world, they still have value. They are still a living, breathing human, just like you and I, and they are entitled to have the same benefits that you and I need in life. They eat, they drink, they bathe, they wear clothes, they need shelter, they deserve all the needs that humanity needs. Despite of their level of cognitiveness, their level of understanding, we must treat them with that dignity and respect, and encourage them and motivate them to understand who they are and what benefits they have of seeking legal guidance when necessary. Dementia patients should have all rights to legislation, ensuring free, informative consent to treatment or treatment plans, guided decision-making choices, and procedural implementation for advanced directives. And that is important again. We need to guide those who are still at a level of cognitive understanding and wisdom to let them make their own decisions and choices. If it comes to that point where they're fully incapacitated and not in a position to make decisions for themselves, That's when a healthcare proxy comes in. And it should be advisable then that before they reach that stage, sit down with a cognitive person or your proxy and strategize what you want best in your last days before you expire. Dementia patients claim the rights to be involved and have access appropriately to levels of care and accommodations, rehabilitation, motivating towards a healthier and graceful, active aging. And on this last paragraph, I just want to make this clear. It doesn't matter what age you are at, it doesn't matter what level and cognitive capability that you're at, you have the rights to make your decisions if you can. You have the rights to good therapeutic rehabilitation if necessary. You have the right to live a healthier lifestyle. You should be in position to age gracefully and actively. So we in the dementia practitioners world, we have an obligation to the patients. And that obligation is to ensure at all times that they're well looked after, that the best decisions are made in their favor, that they can get to live a next day peacefully and actively, with a smile on their face, with dignity and respect, the ability to make their own financial decisions when they possibly can, the ability to refuse, the ability to walk the corridors of their new home, the ability to understand their resident rights. Treat them with dignity and respect. Do your due diligence. Live up to your greatest expectation as a caregiver. And take good care of yourself. We'll see each other again.